Om 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 Ganganapate Namaha. Om Gangurabhyo Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatyaya Namaha. Om Ganana Antva Ganapatigam Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravashtamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashranvanu Tibisita Sadhanam. Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha. Om Namah Shivaya. Good evening, everyone. I'm very excited today to be doing this talk, not by myself, but also with the help of my two most wonderful friends, Brett Popper and Sita, Liz, and the very well-known yoga teachers, speakers, and I want to give them a recognition because I need the power of women in these talks. I need to bring up the awareness of humanity, and we all hopefully should take part in our own ways to awaken the awareness of humanity. So may I first let everyone introduce themselves. I'm going to ask Sita first, say a few words about yourself, and then we can have Brett introduce herself and say something, whatever you like.
Hi everyone, my name is Sita or Liz, and I steward the community of yoga practitioners in Love Integration Yoga in Long Beach, New York. And I've known Premji for many years, and I'm so happy to be here tonight to be speaking on this subject of connection with all of you. So thank you so much for being here.
Brett, would you like to say a few words?
I'm Brett Popper, or sometimes known as Mahadevi, and I am a yoga teacher and also a longtime student of Prem's now in teaching me Sanskrit and also yoga philosophy. And I love this topic, and I love what Prem has been talking about, a lot of which comes through in this idea of connecting through women, which is really kind of interesting. We may have some men on the call, or I'm not so sure. But what I find interesting is that we really have to make new systems, and those new systems have to be through connections. And I think many of us that practice yoga and study meditation and study these healing modalities know that the only way to go forward is through these types of connections. So even if they are in little groups, little sadhanas like this one, or in larger groups, it's important to create chains that can change. So I'm very happy to help facilitate this and be part of this sadhana. So thank you so much.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you. My idea, in fact, is not exclusively mine, but is to really make a series of these kind of talks where we can come up with some fresh ideas and fresh commitments to rebuilding our world. So this is not going to be the only talk. And we already did one, which is called Renewal of Our World. And now this one is called Renewal of Our Connection. So we will see what comes next. But for now, it is simply a continuation of ideas. And we're going to address some problems that exist in modern times, but critically, of course. And then we'll think about the solutions. And the solutions are really spiritual in nature. And sometimes spiritual means just simply practical, what we know to be right, but maybe we did not necessarily practice. So I'm going to begin with just a simple introduction. When I was a little boy, some 6-7 years old, I used to spend a lot of time in nature. And I was always captivated by, my mind was captivated by the colors displayed by nature. And also I enjoyed her seasons and flavors and fragrances like that. And I remember my mind and my senses were totally in bliss. I'm sure you probably remember the same. This is our time of growing up. We did not have exactly such dramatic climatic changes, and I'm sure there's still intact nature all around the world. So I used to often go to the forest, which was just near my house, and also to the mountains. And I was lucky enough to spend some of my childhood climbing the trees and smelling the flowers and enjoying my life without any complexity of what I live today and all of us. And I remember every season would give off some specific signs of its arrival, right? So if it was the spring, you know what the spring brings, what kind of colors, what kind of fragrances, what kind of breeze is felt in the air. Um, so as a child, I often prayed to nature without knowing anything. I just used to say to the sun, please continue to shine, and the wind, please continue to blow. And that was my, as far as I can remember, that was my first connection that I deeply felt with nature, which was not induced by anybody. Nobody told me you should respect nature. It was just, I think it's a simply it's a recognition of a child's connection with Mother Nature, which I think exists in all children if you just naturally expose them to nature as much as you can, as soon as you can. Then at some point, I noticed that there was less and less snow where I come from, and this was I was very sensitive because every year I was measuring the depth of the snow, and also I was thinking how long the snow would stay. And when I was very little, the snow would stay for about 3 months. It would be coming on and off, and then at some point, there was less snow, and that's kind of where my worry kind of started to manifest. And I'm sure you must have had similar experiences in some ways. So you must have noticed that something was taking place in nature. And of course, now we know exactly, or as best as we can, what's going on. See, the question always comes, why do we love nature? Why do we want to take care of it? Why do we want to take care of her? Sorry. Because we know deeply within ourselves that she is our mother. We know instinctively, in fact, that we are one with our mother, intuitively, and without any proof necessary. We know that the nature, or you could say, or God, or we could say the whole exists. So our spirit and our mind, of course, somehow intuitively knows them by a method that is beyond logic. And we could almost say it's a supernatural or spiritual rather. So we can only now know our connection with nature in totality through the development of intuition. And this is what we need to work on in order to really understand these laws of nature that are so pervasive and in order to know the wholeness itself. So the nature extends, as we know, the extent, sorry, of nature does not end with mountains and rivers and the way that it's commonly depicted. Rather, it's the invisible currents of nature run deeply into our bodies to the smallest of the cells, right? So all of the laws of nature that we see enacted externally are enacted within our cells, our bodies, instantly at the same time, I would say. So therefore, when we think of our connection with nature, which is the first thing I wanted to address tonight, we see that is intrinsic, meaning that nature exists within us, and we're simply a continuation of nature in a particular form. We just happen to be gifted by ability of an awareness which is not commonly present in animals or plants in a way that we know it. So this is what I think makes a little bit of an introduction. I would now take a critical look at civilization, and I would like also Brett and Sita to add something to it when I run out of ideas. Okay, so we are at this critical point of coronavirus giving us some science, some teachings like that. And the one of the most important questions that at least comes to me is, what does the progress of humanity really mean? What has it meant so far? You know, when you use the word an advancement, what is an advancement of? Is this, for example, is the technology the sign of advancement of humanity? Is it all the things that we're facing really signs of advancements, or is it something of a mix, which is most likely, or is some confusion within it? So when we look at our progress and advancement in our society, we realize how much of what we call the natural life or habitat or nature we've lost so far. Right, look at our windows. I look every day outside, or at the windows, in fact, in my apartment here, and I can't believe it, the amount of soot that is there. It collects within a week or 2 weeks. You know, you have to clean it. So we know that our waters are polluted. We don't need even a science to tell us. Our air has become unbreathable. Our oceans have become acidic. We all know this. And since we know this, we have to ask these questions, right? A simple question is like this. We all drink water now out of bottles, right? And I've tried my best, I'm sure you're doing the same, to recycle all these plastic bottles that we have, or maybe you're having the water brought in, which is a better way. But anyway, the question that I have is, okay, why do we drink water from bottles in the first place? It's not just that you're drinking, how are you going to recycle material, but you want to ask the questions, why do these products come in a form that they do come, or why did they packaged in a form they're packaged like this? Some simple question here comes to simply the water and all that, but it's really about the progress of what I call it, of humanity. So what we call a progress has actually involved a certain amount of sacrifice, which is probably a sacrifice that cannot be even measured. This is the sacrifice of our natural resources, meaning of the very things that go to make up our bodies and our minds. So what is the cost of this progress? The next question that I ask myself is, how safe and effective are the methods that modern science or technology uses in order to provide us with all these wonderful things that we can, computers and Zoom and internet and name it, and any kind of entertainment and all that. Is this really the progress, and what is the cost, what is the price of it? See, in the process of making things, we obviously pollute nature, we pollute our world. Then the question is, what exactly is the gain in it? Right? So does progress mean sending people to the moon and Mars and all that? So we have all these questions. You see, we try to live on other planets, yet we can't take care of this one that we have. So why do we want to go to the other planets, is to destroy them eventually, like we have destroyed this one? See, with every rocket landing in space someplace, we do not ask our questions, can we really solve our problems of hunger, of homelessness, of all the problems, wars that we have on this planet? So I think here we're far-fetched. We want to really utilize the best of the science to kind of reach the end of the universe. We haven't really cleaned our backyard. This is how I think of it. So wouldn't be better, for that sake, to put all the resources that we have as a humanity to really treat these problems that are now just right in front of us? Let's say we take all the resources of all the rockets being sent and all the military that is being built, you know, all the machinery and everything, you take all these resources and apply them to rebuilding of a new world. Wouldn't that be wonderful? But what is the problem? There are lots of problems, but they can be summarized in simple ways, I think. One is that people are desensitized. And so this is why I think this renewal of our connection is very appropriate title for this. Why the desensitized is not that the humanity in its essence is desensitized. It's obviously in accepting artificial way of living. People have no vision, right? So they don't see or they do not care that their children, our children, are going to be the heirs to this world with nothing left in it, you know? And so what is the cause of it? We could say secondary cause would be selfishness and greed and all these things that have come to make this imbalanced world. So just to finish here with this first part, I would like to remind you, there was a series, I don't know if you've seen it, it's called How Things Are Made. And it's very exciting. You can see how guitars are made, how, you know, anything. And for an ordinary mind, it looks just really beautiful and wonderful. But I was surprised to see that almost all products made in unsustainable manner, which means the production itself meant polluting rivers, air, whatever. And then packaging of the same thing meant polluting. And then when things come to our houses, they arrive in the boxes from Amazon and from wherever, and we dispose of them. How are they disposed of? Nobody wants to think of that. And so anything from our socks to our computers and even artificial intelligence and all this simply meant pollution of some kind, of some aspect of nature or not. So this is how I think of it. Recently, I saw the painting of a single plane cost $100,000. So suppose we wanted to put that plane aside and use this $100,000 to feed some people. How wonderful would that be, right? But it is not going to happen. So now that we're just disconnected from how things arrive into our houses, for how things are made, but also we're disconnected from how things are disposed of, which is a big problem. So we make in order to destroy, right? At the same time we destroy. Well, in my opinion, that is not a progress. And we know that science is necessary, but it's necessary for the science to connect with more internal, more natural, more, I would say, divine laws, because ultimately the science is not beyond the law. It doesn't create the laws, it simply discovers the laws. So with this, I would like to invite my wonderful speakers here to say something of their view of what we can do or what they see they should be fixed. And then anyone, you want Brett or Sita, you are welcome to come in, whosoever first.
Well, I think what's interesting is that what you've said is that we've built all of these things and they haven't brought us any type of happiness. When we obviously we're still suffering, as the texts all state. We will if we keep grasping at these things. And I think that what the coronavirus has taught us is that many things need to break now. Many things need to break. We have to break patterns. We have to break some connections. We have to break habits that are unhealthy. And the coronavirus, in a way, you could look at it very positively and say, this is this incredible opportunity to break some of these cycles, and especially those that are consumeristic in nature. So I have been thinking a lot in my own life about what are the patterns of consumer behavior that I do that I can now break, and I can now stop doing, that I really don't need, that bring me no happiness. It's like, do Cheetos make anybody happy, or Cocoa Puffs really make anybody happy, or any number of things that we have in the world?
Some people have a smile in this.
Do they add anything? So that's been my mantra for the past couple of months, is reduce, 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 break apart. And that's what I'm doing personally in order to do that. So I'll mute myself again.
Beautiful. Sita, would you like to add something of your own look at that?
Yes. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. All right, so I really feel that at the heart of the connection crisis is a life that has been handed over to artificial intelligence. And the first step I feel in reclaiming your life and your connection to not only yourself, but to the natural world and to each other is to really limit the amount of time that we're spending on screens. A friend taught me this past weekend that you can go to the settings on your iPhone and track the amount of time you spend on your cell phone. And I saw today that my average is 4 hours and 20 minutes. And that is just on my phone, that's not on my computer.
Not too bad.
So from this setting on the phone, you can actually create limits on how much you're using the apps, so that after you've exceeded your desired time for the day, they become faded on your screen and you can't use them. It's funny because when you break your vow, it says, "Are you sure you want to do this?" So it's working with you to not be so addicted and to have it open all the time. And also on the phone settings, you can create what's called downtime. And since I run and operate the yoga studio, which runs 7 days a week, morning and evening regularly, not during Corona time, I receive many phone calls, I receive many emails and texts, and it can sometimes feel like I'm always working. So now you can set downtime where everyone can only get in touch with you in your office hours. And you can set it so that your family can still contact you between the hours of 8 and 10, right? So people don't always have access to calling you. And I feel like that is a huge step in improving my overall happiness and connections to myself and to my family. Because I love the Mother Teresa quote, "If you want to change the world, go home and love your family." But if you have no time for your family, how can you love them, right? So I feel that downtime, quiet time, technology-free time is really sacred, it's undervalued, and it's really needed. So if everyone has access to you all the time, when do you even get access to you? And with the studio, I'm learning to set a boundary with the emails so that I can just be granted a couple hours of freedom at night. And I've had to really learn that it's okay to not answer emails back immediately and to kind of start to normalize patience, right? So I got into a conversation today with two friends. I stopped over one of my friends' houses today to pick something up, and we wound up talking about how easily all of our lives have just been handed over to artificial intelligence. Both of my friends are artists. One of them is a musician, and the other one is a clothing maker. And the musician went on to reveal that he's now making his music by using technology to create the sound of the drum and the guitar, as opposed to the instruments he used to love to play so much. And the clothing maker, his partner, claimed that she spent hours making creations on her iPad, and it was hard for her to remember what she liked to do for fun before this technology came about. So I think it's important for us to ask ourselves what we did before scrolling, Spotify, online shopping. And the first step I feel in deepening our connection we have with ourselves is to just really make time for stillness and allow our nervous systems to decompress. And we must really stop the glamorization of busyness. I think we must befriend and really start to welcome quiet spaces in our day. And also deepening our connection to nature is again limiting the time spent on the screen and embracing spending more time in the elements. A lot of my friends in Long Beach are saying that they want to move and that they feel like there's no place for them or their souls in this kind of busy society. And I just really feel that we were all born at this time for a reason, And if it feels like we don't fit, it's because we are destined to create a new standard of living and to reclaim our connections. So I just feel, that commenting to someone's post on Instagram is not the same as asking that friend over for a cup of tea or to meet you for a walk. And I feel we must be the stewards of building the old-fashioned sense of community as we move deeper into technology. I don't feel that any online experience will ever, even though this is lovely, will ever replace the collective uplifting energy of a spiritual service, a kirtan, a satsang, a yoga class, a live music concert, and etc. So I just thank you for listening, but I really check your phones, see how much time you spend on your screen, and then you can limit it so that you can start to create more time to be in nature and to be with each other. That's all.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, both of you, Brett and Sita, Mahadevi and Sita. I think this is only obviously a beginning. We still have a lot more to hear from both of them. So the idea, as you can hear, there's some practical things we can do, but try to contemplate this idea of renewing your connection. The connection is, of course, multi-leveled, and you may want to think of all things that you have disconnected yourself from due to, fast pace of life and different things. We want to say an important spiritual principle. I'd like to add it here, and the one is that the mind in itself, from a spiritual point of view, is simply a bridge between this reality that we live in and what we can call the ultimate reality, or you can call it God or whatever. So it is the bridge. It's not the ultimate and the final destination, and nobody can find truly happiness in the mind itself. In fact, what we call happiness, you will find it only when your mind is free from thoughts, free from all these worries and everything, and you can definitely find happiness in greater connection, which is why we're also born. We're born to experience the connection as a way of experiencing something larger than ourselves and larger than whatever we can imagine at this point. So when this connection is missing for the mind, that is called materialistic life, right? So what happens is an obsession with materialistic side of life. We have nothing against living some some benefits, of course, of the scientific life, having hot water and things like that. It's wonderful. But if this mind lacks the connection with this higher principle, unfortunately, the very same mind becomes destined to self-destruction. And this is what happened to many cultures before us. Does anybody really ask the question, so what happened to people of Atlantis? What happened to Maya people? What happened to Egypt? People of Egypt, all these civilizations lived just like us. They reached the pinnacle of their development, but there was a material seed to it that actually was the cause of their destruction. So as Brett said, Mahadevi, this is a good time to contemplate and act on also, because we're actually given an extraordinary opportunity. I would say the coronavirus has forced all of us, to stay put in a sense, has minimized our movement, which is a necessary thing. It's like when you, if you've been very, very busy beyond your control, and all of a sudden you got struck by some flu or something like that, and then you're made to simply sit down and to process your stresses, and your body processes any toxins and like that. So I call the corona virus a guru, and the teachings that I think I receive and all of us receive from her, we'll call it a lady, because the guru, now gurus come in a female form. So I call the guru lady coronavirus of truly a manifestation of the will or voice of God. And these critical moments are always given also as an opportunity to all spiritual aspirants to make a quicker progress and advancement like that. So you can ask yourself, what have I learned so far? We have had this condition for about 6 months now. And what are we called, personally, socially, collectively, and globally to do and exercise? We have to obviously examine everything that we have created so far, our thoughts and our habits, and even this whole pandemic of consumerism and the fast pace of life, which obviously has affected negatively the families, the relationships, even with oneself. How many people do you know, they say, I can't take care of myself, I can't exercise because I got to work, I can't go to a yoga class because I work until 7. All these things are like that. We have a collapse of a family structure, excessive traveling, and mobility of humans, which is completely out of order. I'm not saying people should not travel, but what we see as traveling is beyond sustainability. So all these things have to be examined, because you remember, nature is all giving. She's a mother, but she also has a very strong disciplinary side. If she feels that she needs to put this humanity to sit down and rethink everything, she's going to do it, and she has powerful methods. And the funny thing is, we cannot do anything about this. So she is just as powerful, as I said before, in her manifestation. She's equally powerful in her ability to discipline. We must remember this, because when we step out of alignment with mother, we go to self-destruction, and we've been doing this for a long time. And so it's kind of time to correct our judgment, to remove that error in judgment, and to bring a natural order into our lives. So just a couple of more sentences on this subject. I often talk in my webinars of something that I've noticed even within myself. I've noticed within spiritual people. I have noticed, of course, in humanity. And this is the problem of disconnect. I think the lack of connection is like the lack of listening, lack of being able to really simply listen, right? And so we have an increasing number of people who are becoming more and more disconnected, and by the way, this desensitized, and on top of it, we could say lonely, right? So we have so many generations, and I pray every day, even for these generations, the modern ones, so we may call them millennials, whatever. I pray for these people to find the strength, first to find the hope and the will to kind of correct some of the mistakes that their fathers, mothers, and grandfathers, grandmothers, and whoever have made. Because we have a very vulnerable group of people, which is the young people, who have now either in the schools, or they're leaving the schools, they're looking for jobs, and all of a sudden they're hit with this coronavirus, but they have no wisdom talks that will tell them, listen, this is your opportunity to correct certain ways. Because if the young people are not part of this process, then we have a big trouble. This cannot be done by us alone. So the problem of desensitization, you can examine it with yourself. If you ask yourself, why am I eating this? Why am I doing this? And it doesn't seem to be in alignment with natural rhythms, natural times, natural food, or whatever it is, then you can make an effort to say, thank you, coronavirus. You're teaching me how to go to sleep on time, how to exercise, how to connect and call my people, and make the time, as Sita said, to, spend time with your friends and whoever it is. So instead of calling it a pandemic of coronavirus, I call it the pandemic of disconnection, which needs to be truly healed. And the coronavirus is only a symptom of it, or rather a sign of a deeper disconnection that we have. So we have, I am exaggerating to some degree, but I want to say that we have a lot of things disconnected. we're disconnected from our bodies. We're disconnected from our minds. We don't even know what it is that our bodies and minds need, which means that we're actually disconnected from our feelings, for which reason we have a lot of addictions to kind of make up for that lack of connection. We have disconnections within families. We have disconnected presidents, lawgivers, and establishments, you know? So all of that coronavirus is asking, hey, people, first of all, we've been made to slow down. We're made to stop and really reflect. Okay, what is going on? And this is the first step to rejuvenation, right? You will find that nature gives signs. One thing I noticed, the moment the nature put the lockdown on humanity, everything started to rebuild in nature. My brother, whose friend works at the airport with those radars or whatever you call it, the air control guy, he says that on average over the city where I grew up, there were some 15,000 flights on average every single day. Now there are only 700 still in Europe, only 700. So this is a big percentage of drop. And yes, we may see it as obviously threat to economy and everything, but let us just look at it on the positive side. I spoke to a friend in the Bahamas who says for the first time, sharks are swimming all over, very close to the beach. Obviously, nobody's swimming exactly very far. As you heard from the news, for the first time, you can see from Nepal, Himalayas, from India even itself, oceans are clearing. And the strange thing is no animal really pollutes the earth, you know? It's us, true animals of humanity in a sense, don't take it too badly. But we have to heal this. So Ramana Maharshi said something wonderful, and that is desire created the city. When somebody asks him what creates cities, he says desire created the city. And desire, excessive here, I'm saying, excessive desire creates imbalances of all kinds. So where are you going to find the solutions to all these problems? In disciplining your mind, which means in curbing your desires, not suppressing them, but curbing them, making them more generous, share things with others if you like. But also you have to think beyond the desire, which means like this. Einstein said something like this: a problem cannot be solved on the same level on which it was created. So desire created all these problems, right? We have the world that is created by excessive desire, like the world that is out of balance. Then we cannot have a different type of desire which is similar to these ones that created it in order to solve it. So we need to rise above the desire and have some vision, right? So now what we need to do is to start to think of the word connection. But before I say this, before I give a word to Brett to say a few words, and Sita again, if you'd like to. The discouraging thing about humanity is that they do not perceive their divinity, right? So they don't see anything great in them. They just see themselves as beings that are supposed to, you know, obviously contribute to the world, but they're ultimately here to take something from the world or to enjoy in the world and everything. So there's a form of a restricted philosophy that is a part of ordinary human beings. See, spiritual people tend to step out of this mediocre aspect. So the problem again with the humanity is they have accepted to live a restricted life, right? So feeling restricted life means that they try their best to enjoy it, but they end up suffering, they end up being sick and all these things. Now, of course, none of us can entirely avoid these things. They will be there, they're imposed by nature to a great degree. But again, at the same time, we do not need to be prisoners or victims of our life, right? So not only that it's possible to prolong positive states, positive conditions, but we can also you know, eliminate a lot of these negative situations that take place in life. But we need to believe in something higher than what we normally see. We cannot live as if we are hypnotized and you know, caught in these paradigms, you know, of thinking that this is the only way you can live your life. You know, work, educate yourself. Your parents will pay some of it, you pay some of it, at least in America. Educate yourself, get married, or live any way you like. You know, have children or have no children, it doesn't matter. Live as long as you can, enjoy yourself and die. This is not a very good philosophy of life. So we must not believe that restriction is a normal state. So we must become aware of the divinity within us. So I want to ask now Brett, my Mahadevi friend, to say something, whatever she would like to say.
Well, what I've been grappling with is that there is this opportunity for connection and new ways of doing things, but it's not the same patriarchal leadership type of way of looking at it that's going to get us very much to what you said about having to look at a different structure in order to get past what we've created before. Because if we've created something with desire, we can't create something else with desire that will supplant it. So the only thing we can create it with is this idea of connection and reaching out to one another and figuring out how to organize in a time period where that is particularly difficult. So the people that want to do this, that want to reach across, that want to be able to connect, are doing so under the most difficult of circumstances, because it's not like you can go to a coffee shop and like set up and say, okay, everybody join my organization or anything like that. So there's a whole new world that I'm grappling with about how do we connect in a way to create change in a way that's not hierarchical, a way that is so. For instance, running New York City is too big a job for one person. I'm totally convinced. And so how do we then create an organization whereby there is a council, kind of going back and learning from Native Americans, learning from other groups? How do we create a council that really runs things and that looks at things in different ways? Because we can no longer run on this power structure, this hierarchy, this paternalistic type of situation. It's just not going to work. So these are the things that I'm grappling with and trying to figure out ways that we can connect and change these things.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sita. Say something. Add some nice juice here between three of us. It's like I feel very happy to be sharing this talk.
I love what you have to say, Brett. I completely agree that I can't imagine having to run New York City when just having to run a yoga center by myself feels to be too much. So I'm grappling with the idea on a smaller scale of how do I get the community to be involved and to consider spaces like these to be their own. And whatever they put into it, they'll receive from it. So calling on members of communities to get involved and to not feel like it's us and them type thing. So I really appreciated that, and that's exactly what I'm going to try and do as we reopen, is to invite people into the space to participate and get involved not only in the yoga center, but what can we do in our communities to establish connections? How can we maybe have the studio be a space to meet our delegates and to get to know what's happening on a smaller local scale? So yeah, that's all I have to say. As we more approach, like, there's 5G living, and on other scales, 3D, 4D, and 5D. I feel like the choice is really ours of moving into technology or moving into higher consciousness in a grounded, connected way that's from the heart.
Beautiful, thank you. I mean, what we have to remember from a spiritual teaching is that there is a higher technology within the mind. You know, for example, if you want to send the thousands of emails to people all around the world, you can do it. Also, if you know how, you can send thousands of the same thought to thousands of people. Great masters work like that. There is a technology that's part of the human life. So, of course, for the time being, we may just keep a good, you know, good control over it. I think, as Sita suggested, to kind of just regulate your time spending on it. Spending, you know, I know it takes courage because you're going to have to reduce your time that maybe even creates your income. But at the same time, we have to create an economy that is going to be specifically um, uh, uh, aligned with our needs as a whole beings, not just our financial side and that. See, now we come to a more positive kind of end here. I would say we need to now think, okay, so how do we reconnect? What does it mean to reconnect? So the essentials of connection, in my opinion, are these ones. One, everything in nature communicates, you know, and we have to understand that there's a language that is part of the communication. Everything in this nature speaks, but not exactly in the language that we think that we should be able to hear them speak. So for this, we need to do a regular spiritual practice. And it is this regular practice that will increase our sensitivity and understanding of how nature speaks. Now, nature also means everybody, all phenomena, all events, all people. So we need to develop a quality of listening and practicing of silence. You'll find that in nature, um, everything is alive. Everything that is alive also speaks. And this language is beyond the words, it's basically the language of the heart. So in order to learn to connect in the ways that whatever you can think of, the first thing you need to have is to do sadhana. The second thing is to create time. The connection requires time. Yeah, we cannot connect simply by Instagram, this and that. That's just not working. So if you want to define connection in some other ways, you can think of it as the recognition of presence of somebody or something, right? And then knowing that you form one uniform or one unity or something like that. So the recognition of presence of, let's say, of a person that you live with is the way to connect. So instead of just taking people for granted, taking the events for granted, taking anything for granted, we now add this quality of recognition. So the recognition of presence is nothing but a form of love. Because, you know, when you have a child, that's what you do with a child. You recognize them. Oh, how are you? What are you doing? If you have an animal, you recognize their presence. And when you recognize the presence of anybody, they feel loved. Similarly, you can do this even with rocks, with trees and everything, even though you may never understand the language that they speak in. So another way to think of connection is to think in terms of caring. So when you connect to or with somebody, you care for that person or that thing or whatever that may be. So obviously there are different levels of caring. So let's say caring for ourselves, meaning attuning ourselves to nature. So there will be all these questions, you know, you may do them as a part of your spiritual journaling, eating properly. Ask yourself, what is it that my body needs? You know, how can I also spend time more with nature? How can I reduce hours of work? All these things are part of it. Because when you reduce being consumed by activity on another side, you're also going to reduce the consumption in a positive way. The next important thing is what Sita said, and also Brett, is to rebuilding our connection with the family members and also with community members. I would say, please talk to people, encourage people to bond and express love and develop respect for one another. All these things are necessary. Without the family structure, we won't make it, because the family structure is truly the cell of the body, right? So if we end up having a collapse of family structure, we will have a collapse of values that constitute the society, meaning positive values. We'll have the collapse of proper eating habits. We have all kinds of problems that we know. So back to nature, we're going to pay the attention to how nature communicates, how ocean communicates. And if you feel like you don't understand it, it doesn't really matter. It's okay. The most important thing is you feel like you're opening your heart, you're opening yourself, you're smiling, you're relaxing into and with life, and you're allowing the breeze and the sunlight to touch you in a way that you have not felt it before. For that, you need to practice being a child again. This is necessary because only children have the capacity. We try to process everything intellectually. So this sun is a planet, it's just one of the 9 things, or one of these, we shouldn't think that way. For us, a planet is this amazing being, right? Sun as a planet is an amazing being. So you will gradually, in this way, synthesize some very subtle centers in you, which will allow you to connect with all life, and all life that circulates in the universe, not just between you and something else. And this is because everything, as I said, is alive and talks, and the nature talks too. See, all this may sound like a little bit of a, I don't know, hippie kind of a conversation here, but it's actually not. We have to remember that if we express our connection in a language of love and respect like that, they will produce wonderful vibrations, wonderful colors and waves, and that actually do act on matter, right? And as the matter reacts, it also responds. So in fact, everything is alive. We have to remember that. So here's another thing I was contemplating for quite some time. And I want to tell you that in my opinion, there are 4 groups of people today. We have seen the majority of people who come to this kind of talks, and people who to attend teacher training course and Buddhist things and this and that, are mainly women. I don't know, there may be one gentleman here or something, but it's mainly women. It's scary. And it's not scary that these are the women. The scary part is the men are missing. So the first group today, I'm going to put it on a pedestal, and I'm not into, women, men, anything division, but we are noticing that women who are inspired are the most powerful group of people today. They're becoming the leaders, and their thought vibration, heart vibration, is the highest. The first group. I hope you like it. I mean, I have a great love and admiration for women, especially in modern times. I see what their potential is. It's unbelievable. So then with second group, maybe we talk about some spiritual men, right? Men, women, it doesn't matter, but just for this conversation, you can think of it. They are very, they represent a minority, okay, but they're very important. So their vibration is also high, but so they're simply in minority. Okay, then you have the men who are barely inspired today. They're mainly mechanically living. They're just, doing the jobs, living things. They're like, like a cat. They like their habits just regulated and followed and like that. So I would call that the middle or low vibration. Often these kind of people do not have some high vision. And we're not actually, I'm not judging anybody. I'm just trying to tell you how I've seen this division now. And so these kind of people, they have a potential to awaken, but they're slow to awaken. So now what we're going to say, as you know, there will be a man and probably many generations of people like that who are really stuck and they cling to the old ways of domination, power, with very low vibration, no vision at all for future, only vision for their own immediate self-satisfaction. You can see them in their treatment of people of color, of people or women, or any problem that is certainly, they don't consider it's their problem. So those are the kind of 4 types of things. So what this leads me to conclude to is that, as you know, anyway, you probably feel it, the women are the future leaders of the world. They have a great potential, and it's fine because they will be able to pull the men up also, which is important. Today, what we find is I'm sorry to say this, I'm a man, I don't feel like quite that is necessarily, all of this. It's not, a blank truth, but it is, there's some truth is in between. Men have lost today a lot of truth and courage, especially to stand up to inequality. Okay, so that's that needs to change. So we seem to see a lot of kind of men checked out. Truly, they're like, just okay, things are happening, this and that. Okay, leave men alone, leave women alone, but you're the leaders. So now I want to say also that in order to increase your connection or our connection with nature, you have to do a couple of things. Okay, one is you must love all seasons. You love the heat, you love the cold. Okay, you love the wind, you love the hurricane. It's all God sent, and these are wonderful messages of love to all of us. Yes, sometimes it's not pleasant, I get it. How about living for some time without the AC? That would be a good, wonderful exercise for every one of us. Or a little less heating in the wintertime. See, in the winter, we must enjoy cold. In the summer, we should be able to enjoy heat. And not excessive. I'm not saying never nothing. Okay. See, animals in their natural environment accept nature as it is without using any artificial things. They don't even have umbrellas. They don't have shoes, all this. So as a result of it, they're healthier than humans are. And that's the thing I'm pointing out. I'm not against AC or heating. I like to have both sometimes myself. But if you if you're looking for health, you need to align yourself with environment. And if you want to align with the environment, you have to eat environmental food. That food that grows near you is the best for you. See, in our search for pleasure and comfort, we find mainly weakness and disease. Okay, so this is the way to think about. Then some exercises, yoga, running is good, but cleaning is the best exercise. Carrying things is the best exercise. Long time ago, people didn't exercise like we do. They just lived, and that was enough. I'm not saying that we should go back and lift only and clean, but this is a good exercise. Another important thing is, as you eat, say a prayer, we know that. Please always say a prayer. Even if you don't feel like saying it, say it mechanically. Just say it. Doesn't matter. There's a prayer in Sanskrit which also says, do not censor the food. Once the food has been given to you, once you said the prayer, don't complain about the food. So, annam na nindyat. This is a Vedic prayer which says, never censor the food. What does the Veda also say? Never complain about the weather. Some people say, this is terrible weather. This is monstrous. They call these hurricanes with such names. It's terrible, So why? Because these are great manifestations of nature, you can say, of God, right? So another thing that help, I'll take just a few more minutes if you don't mind, is a need to minimize. Everything minimize. Because when you eat too much food, you cannot appreciate food. When you watch too much videos, movies, you cannot appreciate a new video. If you read too many books, you will not enjoy thinking. So similarly like that, every excess dulls sensitivity. So remember a very important principle, which is quality versus quantity. So if you're 5 minutes with your partner and 5 minutes with your child, those 5 minutes are to be made into most precious 5 minutes. No multitasking when you're connecting. You see, you cannot go and look at the sunrise and then check your Google for your messages. It doesn't work that way. You got to do one at one time and then the other one like that. See, so for our increasing of our connection, we must do that. And another important thing is that there's a principle in Veda also, which is called that we can only solve problems if we unify. That's the answer. To win, we must unify. Samhatihi karya sadhika, Vedic prayer, which says unity achieves any object. So if we want to have success with coronavirus, we may start with our own little lives, you know. Maybe I will sacrifice one of the beasts in my life, such as a desire for sugar. Yeah. So that would be my way of rebalancing myself. I'm going to send all the tiramisus to Kim here, who is on the or maybe Sita, she likes it also. So, you know, like things like that, you can decide to get rid of one habit that is contrary to you know to the state, let's say, that causes a certain imbalance in your life, and you can detect what it is and then, you know, get rid of it, or temporarily at least make some effort, at least in that case. You see, the biggest tasks always take the longest time. So I would say what many people have said before, that in this sense the evolution of humanity depends primarily now upon the judgment of women, and I implore you to please do whatever you can to regulate all of the people in your household, all the animals, nature itself, everybody. Okay, so I think that would be probably everything I wanted to say. There's something to probably to add on the nature of intuition. Okay. As I said at the beginning of the talk, what's important is to try to work on developing your intuition, which is part of this connection, right? And intuition is the key to saving human race. That doesn't mean that it's going to come all of a sudden, and it doesn't mean day-to-day, you know, or learned knowledge that we have. It's nothing like that. In fact, often the more educated we are, the more obscure this deeper awareness becomes. So how would you actually discover this intuition? First of all, in the teachings like this from the East, they say we must eat well, because the food builds the body and it builds the mind. See, in the ancient times, whether we're talking about the time of Jesus or Moses or Confucius or anybody, you can never imagine that they will have 48 different flavors of ice cream, or, you know, chips or something like this. Buddha never drank Coca-Cola. You know, nor did any of the Christians did they eat the frozen pizza. So these kind of things are connected to junk food, creates a junk consciousness. Okay, so this is why if you want to properly think, you have to study the relationship between the energies of food and the way you think. And then the second way to develop intuition is to simply deepen your reflection. You know, what is the goal of life? How would you like to live? And how would you like to, what is the purpose of your life? I think this is the most important thing. And then you will find that this teaching will help us in all ways. So with these words, I've taken an extra few minutes. I want to finish. I want to ask Brad to add a few things, Sita to add a few things, and then we can conclude. And I hope we can reconnect again in another talk. Okay.
I don't have much to add except to thank you and to say if there's anybody else that wants to add something at this point in time, it would be a good time to do. We still could do another 5 minutes or so.
Sure.
Questions.
Sita, would you want to just conclude with 1-2 sentences? Love everyone.
I too would just like to thank you all. This was a really special talk and moment of connection. And I too would like to hear from anyone else who wants to share or say anything. And thank you so much, Premji, for holding space for us to connect this evening.
Can I say something? Hi. I just want to say thank you to all three of you. You guys are just amazing and wonderful, and I love listening to you all. And as I'm sitting here listening and taking notes, I feel like the world is taking God out of everything that we look at, and I think everyone needs to bring God back into the world and life, and maybe close things up on Sunday again like they did when I was a little kid, and just get back to the basics. I think so many people have access to indulging and buying and whatever they want, you know, whatever they want, whenever they want, with storage units and just so much stuff that they've lost like sight of like people in their world, you know? So I just want to say thank you. It was great listening to you, Prem. I miss you. I can't wait to be in a room together with everyone. And God bless you all.
Can't hear you, Prem.
Sorry, if you want to add anything, you're all being here added, recorded. Whoop, I forgot that I muted myself. Anyone else wants to say anything? How about Katie, Anjali? That's something. Hi.
Hello. This was great. I mean, I feel very fortunate because I'm looking out on nature right now as we had this conversation. But so much, I mean, we're in such a time of confusion and I think turmoil on so many different levels. And it has been, you know, I think I read it last week, and I want to say that it's Walmart is going back to closing on Thanksgiving. So, you know, tiny step in a good direction.
There will be less fighting, yes.
There won't be those kind of
yes.
Black Friday sales. But I think at this, you know, I'll take anything. I'll take any of it.
Yes.
Small movement in one of those directions, I'll take it.
Awesome. Awesome. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you. So anyone else wants to add anything? You're welcome to. We still have quite a few people here.
It's a beautiful full moon tonight, and to connect to the moon tonight.
I will stick my head through the window and look up if there is anything. You know,
trees
it's okay.
lift it.
Yes, no, it's okay. It's okay. You know, I every day I go and I talk to trees and shrubs and everything. There's a park here. Everybody thinks I'm totally out of my mind, but actually, it's quite wonderful. You will find it within the minutes just by looking at the greenery or the ocean or whatever we are nearby, or sky specifically. It creates exactly what those things are. Green represents life, ocean represents also, you know, everything in us, and the sky represents consciousness and expansion of the mind. Immediately these things take place. One day I will do a little meditation with you or for you on how to meditate on nature like that, just if you want to have a more kind of a technique. But I think you all have ideas. So you have a task. Today, 3 of us talked. If anybody wants to join and next time say more, add things to our talk, you're welcome to. I would love to encourage you to have some genuine sitting with your family members or whoever and talk about coronavirus, not in a negative way, but talk to them about, what do you think this teaches us this time? And isn't it wonderful that we're having a meal together tonight and that we can burn the food together? Sorry, we can cook together, like that. All kinds of nice things, And if you can involve a few friends, I think we need to expand our influence beyond 20 people tonight. I think that would be really awesome. And then you can, next time we meet, to just say, this is what happened, a friend of mine really thought this was a good idea and that we could do. And maybe we won't be able to reach everybody. It doesn't really matter. But remember, the 4 groups of people. You have to first start with women, then start with some little yin men who look like, potentially open to doing a yoga class once a month or something. And, there will be small changes. We men are terrified that somebody will come to us and change our philosophy of life. That's not easy situation. But if you do with little love and not much insistence, people are actually happy to do. So what I'm saying is that treat of your own way of connecting with other people is just sharing, and of course let people have their own opinions about things, and less of a worry about how is this economy going to look like, what we're going to do, and everything. Hello, Laura, do you want to add something? You obviously wanted to say something. Come, say something.
Hi, sorry.
Don't
No,
worry.
my phone keeps slipping. But thank you very much. I enjoy all your satsangs.
You're welcome.
Very valuable information. I had always felt that there was kind of a message in this pandemic for everyone. But I never really discussed that with anyone. And then last month I attended your satsang, and it was very heartening to hear how others in the spiritual community kind of feel the same way and see that. So thank you.
Wonderful. If you think of coronavirus being a guru, and the whole humanity's disciples, they will all look one way, they will all mask. So it's a new religion. That's it. No, I'm teasing you. This all may improve, but we need to improve first. That's kind of how nature works. If we make an effort to eat better, talk better, do this, it's, of course, we're a work in progress. We know that. So that's okay. Nature understands this, but some excessive things has to stop. And I think consumerism on our level has to stop. And also our ignorance about how things come to us has to stop. Now, we still have to probably order sometimes from Amazon and do things like that. But we can also say, okay, listen, is there a different way to kind of build this life? You may start slowly by having a little garden, a little friend, cook one meal, like something that you may have not you couldn't do it before, but it's actually a way to build a nicer life. And if you're already doing that, do something else, and definitely try to reach out to other people. So I will finish today with this little message, and I hope to see you again. You're a really wonderful group of people, and I hope you're okay that we went a little bit over the time. Thank you again. Om, om, om.